Now, there's another verse here, verse 17. Let's read that. It starts this way. For therein. Therein means in what he just talked about, in the gospel. Therein means, I'm talking again about the gospel. He says, for therein is the righteousness of God revealed. Now, when Paul says, in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, he doesn't mean that the gospel reveals to us just how righteous God is. The gospel is not about that. In fact, we don't need for that to be revealed to us. Everybody knows that instinctively. You don't need to convince anyone that God is righteous. Everybody knows God is righteous. There's no controversy about that. In fact, everybody instinctively knows that God is righteous. So what Paul means when he says, therein is the righteousness of God revealed, what he means by that is the way a person is right with God. The word righteousness means in compliance with the standard of what is right. And what Paul means here is when he says, for therein, that is in the gospel, what the gospel reveals to us is how we are right with God, or how we are in compliance with the standard of what is right. The word righteousness comes from a root Greek word, dike, D-I-K-E, which means what is right, or the rule, or the standard of what is right. And that word, dike, is translated just or right in the Bible. Now, a larger word, a compound word made from that root word is the word righteousness, which literally means in perfect alignment with the standard of what is right, or in perfect compliance with all that's required to be right with God. So this is very interesting now. Paul says in the gospel, it reveals to us how to be in perfect compliance with everything that God requires. Now this gets very interesting, because when we sit in church week after week, we are led to believe, and we're told many times, well, there's a whole lot of things. Ever the things we say in church that make us distinctive in church, you have to do those things to be in compliance with what God requires. All these extraneous things, all these extra things. Some churches put a lot of emphasis on how you dress, and how women fix their hair, and whether they wear makeup or not, and whether they wear long skirts or not, or how the men dress, and what you do, and whether you observe certain days as holy, or whether you eat certain foods, and all these things derived from the law. And we make up our own laws and what you can do on certain days, and where you can go and what you can't do, and all these extra things to be in compliance with the standard of what is right. Some people look in the Old Testament and try to find the standard of what is right by the Old Testament law. But right here in this book of Romans, Paul, really, he gives us everything we need, right? If all you had was the book of Romans, you'd have enough. Over in chapter 10, Paul says, Christ is the end of the law for everyone that believes. In fact, we can say it this way, the law has no more purpose for everyone that believes. Because Jesus himself, by nature, was in perfect compliance with everything that God requires. And here's the marvelous thing about the gospel. When you transfer your faith from yourself to Jesus, when you transfer your reliance from yourself to a Savior, then God accepts you into His presence. He accepts you in relationship with Him and considers that you are now in compliance with everything that He requires, even though you yourself didn't do it. But you see, you're not trusting in yourself. You're trusting in Jesus, who by nature is in compliance. See, He brings you into that state of being in right standing with God. Jesus brings you into that condition or relationship or place, if we want to call it that, of being in compliance with God. The place that God requires you to be, Jesus did it for you. You see, let me tell you a little story. This is a made-up story. I use this sometimes. It's an analogy to try to help you understand. Let's say we're all standing on the bank of the ocean. Let's say it's the Atlantic Ocean around Boston somewhere. And let's just say, for the sake of analogy, God comes to us and He says, where you're at is not acceptable to me. Where you are is not good enough. I require you to be somewhere else than where you are right now. And where I require you to be is another place called England. Across the ocean, over in England, I require you to be something other than what you are right now. And you see, really, this is the essence of the law. The law comes and the message is, where you are right now is not good enough. I require you to be in a state called righteousness, which you can achieve by observing all of these requirements. Now, if God comes to us and says, I require you to be in England, this is where I require you to be, and that's all we know, we're all going to jump in the water and start swimming. And we put our best effort into it, and we do the best we can. But listen, no matter how good a swimmer you are not going to swim across the Atlantic Ocean and swim to England. You can't get there by your own effort. But what we do is we fail. And so we come back and we catch our breath and we say, tomorrow I will try harder. I will redouble my efforts. I will turn over a new leaf. You know, for many people, this is what the Christian life is all about. Trying and failing, turning over a new leaf, redoubling my efforts. I'll try again tomorrow. I'll try to do better tomorrow. Give me another chance. I'll try again. I'll try again. I'll try again. Did you know that mentality is not a gospel mentality? That's a law mentality. That's a mentality that says I'm trusting in me and what I can do, and I'm going to try to get myself into that condition where God will accept me. I realize that I'm not there. See, that kind of mentality is not trusting in Jesus whatsoever. It's trusting in yourself. So we jump in the water day after day. Try to swim across the Atlantic Ocean. We can't do it. Tomorrow I'll try harder. Finally, somebody gives up. And it's a great day, I think. It's a great day when you give up. Giving up is a great thing. Because the first person that gives up and says, listen, I can't do it. I don't have it in me. I can't do what God requires me to do. I can't be what God requires me to be. That's a great thing. That's a great day. Because the first time a person gives up and says, I can't swim across the Atlantic Ocean, I don't care about trying. I can't do it. I don't have it in me. The first person that does that, suddenly, after they've given up, realizes that back over here, something I never noticed before. Here's an airport, and there's a 747, and Jesus is the pilot, and he's got a captain's hat on, and Jesus says to the first person that gives up, listen, if you'll trust me, if you'll put your confidence in me, if you'll trust me, I will deliver you to where God requires you to be. Well, if you ask me, that's a pretty good deal. Let's see. On one hand, jump in the water and try to do it yourself and fail and fail and fail. Or on the other hand, don't do anything except trust in Jesus, and He will deliver me and carry me to where God requires me to be and deposit me there in that condition. I think I'd just soon trust in Jesus. You see, that's the way it works. That's what righteousness is. Jesus, when we trust Him, when we put our faith in Him as a Savior, He delivers us into the place that God requires us to be, which is called right standing with God, or it's defined by this word, righteousness. See, when we put our faith in Jesus, He puts us in a condition with God that's called righteousness, in compliance with everything that God requires. Now, we didn't do anything to get there. Jesus did it all Himself. You see, in my little story about jumping in the water and then trusting in Jesus, and He carries us across in the airplane, once He's deposited us in the place where God required us to be, we can't say, well, it was because I did all that swimming. Our swimming had nothing to do with it. It was wholly and 100% the result of what Jesus did, and only that. So all we can boast about is Jesus put me in a condition with God of righteousness. But if He did it, then it's a done deal. Then He's done it, you see. If Jesus put me in a condition of righteousness with God, and it wasn't the result of my efforts and my work, then it's a thing that's secure, because my efforts and my work don't destroy it or don't ruin it.